Yae Miko is coming around the corner, and I'm genuinely ready to sell my soul to the Pink Fox Lady. And since her story quest might actually have some of the most important lore pieces to close off Inazuma's Archon Quest, I think it's finally time for me to return to omnipresence over mortals and break apart each hidden lore context that's important to fleshing out the story. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. And disclaimer, this is not a full recap of the story.
Are you ready? We'll start by heading to the camp on Watatsumi Island, and then we'll go meet Her Excellency together from there.
The first part of the Archon Quest takes place in Watatsumi Island. The people of Watatsumi Island once were part of the ancient civilization of Byakuyakoku. Their civilization allegedly predated the Archon War, existing far longer than what we see in the Archon Quest. Thousands of years ago, the people of Byakuyakoku wanted to leave the Dark Sea, but for reasons unknown, Celestia banned them from returning to the surface world, thus sealing them underground. The people were terrorized by creatures known as the Dragonair of the Depths, and were forced to live in eternal darkness. The god of time, Istaroth, took pity on the humans of Byakuyakoku and gave a sage by the name of Abarax the knowledge to create a sun for humanity. The era of darkness came to an end when the Dainichi no Mikoshi was constructed. Humanity had a semblance of hope moving forward. After many years, Orobaxi, or the god of serpents, escaped into the Dark Sea. The people pleaded with Orobaxi to become their god, and Orobaxi accepted. He broke the corals from his back to allow the creation of the islands we see today, and the people climbed to the surface. Thus, Watatsumi Island's history prospered.
Not long ago, someone wrote to me saying that they wished to support the Watatsumi Island resistance effort. To that end, they also furnished us with a great deal of supplies.
The opening scene of Omnipresence Over Mortals takes us to the mysterious island of Watatsumi, where a resistance member named Teppei introduces us formally to Lady Sangonomiya Kokomi. The traveler is fully promoted as the captain of Swordfish 2. Here we are told of the dire circumstances of the resistance, and how supplies are horribly insufficient. It is here that we are told of an anonymous benefactor who has pledged their assistance to the resistance. Despite Teppei asking the divine priestess if this is a good idea, considering the resistance doesn't know their identity, Kokomi is forced into the corner and begrudgingly says that this donation was out of goodwill, which it isn't.
Our ancestors regarded it as a guardian deity, but during the Archon War, Orobaxi invaded Yashiori Island.
The traveler and Paimon soon travel around Yashiori Island, completing a few more missions. There they meet Teppei, who looks quite worse for wear. However, Teppei dismisses their concern and tells them the story of the great serpent's corpse in Yashiori Island.
The Raiden Shogun came out in person and slew Orobaxi with the Muso no Hitotachi. That same slash also formed what later became known as Musojin Gorge. Yes, but the Archon War was brutal. And Yashiori Island was completely destroyed during that battle. They say the Shogun lost something very dear to her along the way, too.
In lore, legends tell different stories of why Orobaxi fled to the Dark Sea. Either he lost, or simply didn't want to partake in the Archon War. Regardless, in the process of fleeing to the Dark Sea, he committed a great sin. This was told to us by Enjo in the Enkanami World Quest, where he says Orobaxi found a lost book. This book was known as Before Sun and Moon, and told of a time before Celestia came to this world. It said that instead of gods ruling over the land, it was the Dragonair of the Depths, creatures of the elemental Bishop realm. Orobaxi found this book, but after reading it, he was sentenced to death by Celestia, allegedly to cover up their past, as it would seem that not even the human civilizations knew that there was a time that existed before Celestia. Teppei tells the traveler that Orobaxi was a god that was before the Archon War. He was allegedly living in peace with the Electro Archon, as they respected the boundaries of Watatsumi Island and Yashiori Island. However, one day, Orobaxi would destroy this peace and invade the neighboring land, prompting the Archon to kill him. Why he suddenly went to Yashiori Island despite living in peace is currently unknown. But what was a fate worse than death was the situation of the people of Watatsumi. Upon surfacing, the people of the island were begging Orobashi to move towards the islands to the east. That is because the lands of Yashiori were fertile and the people were suffering a horrible famine. Orobashi knew that it would be suicide to invade the lands of Yashiori, but the suffering of his people moved his heart to begin a siege for the island regardless. But what the people of the sea did not know was that Orobashi had no intention of winning, and his purpose was not to take the land of Yashiori for themselves. Instead, it was a sacrifice.
Recently, some of our soldiers started showing symptoms of accelerated aging.
Upon returning from the missions in Yashiori Island, we are met with Goru and Kokomi telling the traveler that several resistance members were showing symptoms of rapid aging and loss of vitality.
I called them in for questioning and found out they'd privately acquired some secret weapons from our sponsor. Most of them are highly ambitious types, vehemently opposed to the Vision Hunt Decree. They've been using these new weapons secretly since getting a hold of them.
So that's why the war has been going unusually well. But risky secret weapons are not the answer. We must put a stop to it immediately.
These secret weapons would be confirmed by the traveler as the Delusions. The Fatui planned to integrate the Delusions into the resistance to create somewhat of a demand. A member of the Fatui by the name of Nathan was placed into the Sangonomiya resistance to distribute Delusions amongst the soldiers. Nathan is the second naval lieutenant of Piero's division and was sent to prolong the battle between the resistance and the shogunate's forces. The situation of the Inazuman civil war is presently uncertain. The longer this conflict drags on, the more advantageous our position will be. To deepen the resistance's reliance on Delusions, to fan the flames of war, and steel the resolve of the leadership on both sides to continue fighting, I call upon all comrades to assist the work of 7 Naval Lieutenant Nathan in dashing Sangonomiya's hopes for a quick victory. If there are any accidents, assist in 2nd Lieutenant Nathan's escape and silence all those who might reveal our infiltration into their ranks. This mission is of vital importance of securing our supply of Delusions. Not a single detail may be overlooked. In lore, Delusions are the items of the Fatui made from Archon residue. It allegedly uses the energy festered by the dead gods to power itself, but it takes the user's life force as a price. The contents of the Delusions can be kept in a vessel or injected directly into a person. The Delusions are able to amplify a person's desire and can bestow powerful abilities to a person who doesn't have inherent elemental capabilities. Unfortunately, if a person doesn't have strong resistance to the elements or has a weak constitution, their life force slowly becomes sapped away, which is what happened to Teppei. Angered by the circumstances, the traveler heads to Yashiori Island, in which he confronts the Fatui.
I'm the Balladeer, number 6 of the Fatui Harbingers. Delighted to meet you, oh mighty traveler.
The Balladeer confirms that their plans were to prolong the Vision Hunt Decree so that they can create a market for the Delusions.
They were always going to die, with or without a delusion. At least having one gives them a chance to fulfill their ambitions. Do you have any idea how useful the Vision Hunt Decree is to us? It took a lot of work to make it happen. Obviously, it was in our best interests. Good news is, our hard work is finally paying off. Generating conflict creates a big market for Delusions. Now we just let the promise of power draw in the weak. For just a small price, they get the feeling of controlling the world, trading their life for supreme power. Pretty good deal, don't you think?
The traveler goes to confront Scaramouche, yet is met by a mysterious purple haze. This haze is known as the Tatarigami, a form of energy that came from the corpse of Orobashi. The energy is known to corrupt a person's mind and incapacitate them, making them believe that they are hearing the whispers of Orobashi himself. The energy of the Tatarigami first spread on Yashiori Island. To seal this, the people of Inazuma created 3 Narukami pillars to suppress the soul of Orobashi, and subduing the Tatarigami. However, A group of radical Orobaxi fanatics infiltrated the Watatsumi Island to unseal the energy of the Tatarigami, believing that their god wills them to release the energy to this world. With the help of the Fatui agent Nathan, they were able to break the 3 pillars and cause the Tatarigami to spread again. If anyone leaks the team's secrets, they shall be held accountable. Ambush the Shogunate soldiers on a rainy day using our long-studied tactics, switch outfits with them, and obtain their ship supplies. Phase 2. Attack and break Shogunate's wards according to the methods Mr. Nathan explained, and restore the dignity of our great Omikami. Stage 3. If the plan does not go well, sacrifice yourself for our mighty Omikami. If things go well, you may retreat safely, but in neither case can you reveal your identity, thus implicating our divine priestess. It also seems like the Fatui are trying to hide their involvement with the Tatarigami. As stated in the world quest known as Clean House, Varenka was given orders to silence those that might be involved with the Tatarigami, or those that could reveal the Fatui's involvement.
Be sure to withdraw all haste and bring the new Inazuma recruits to retrieve the secret report that Nathan wrote to the First Harbinger. To prevent any repercussions from this incident, no one must know about the inner workings of what happened on Yashiori Island. The new recruits do not have innate value to the overall goals of the Fatui, and need not be trained in any way. They will, however, do just as fine as living test samples.
The traveler passes out after the Tatarigami takes over, and we hear Paimon's cries for help.
Repeat after me. 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3.
When we wake up, we are returned to the Narukami Shrine and are met with Yae Miko. Yae Miko is the Guji of the Grand Narukami Shrine and was a good friend of Morax and Baal. Ei says that she is a kitsune, and that Yae Miko has a myriad of forms at her disposal. Now, however, she tells the traveler that she simply saved them from Scaramouche. Yae says that the members of the resistance aren't enough for the Vision Hunt decree, and instead, she asks the traveler to help her. She reveals to the traveler the true nature of the Raiden Shogun and the Electro Archon.
Her name is Ei.
Ei had tried to manipulate her form after the destruction of Conria, longing to create a vessel that was eternal. The physical body is susceptible to corrosion, but a puppet is created for perfection. In Ei's character stories, we are told that the Raiden Shogun is flawless and was Ei's assistant to her goals, but she programmed it in a way that sought the best possible outcome to attain the eternity Ei wanted.
That's why the Shogun has a robust system to safeguard against modification. It's also to protect against unforeseen circumstances. For now, while I figure out the form that eternity should take, it's more effective for me to temporarily disable some of the puppet's functions, rather than attempt to modify her rules.
It's presumed in 2.2 that the technology Ei used to create the puppet had something to do with the paper charms, or at least that was assumed by Tartaglia. The Raiden Shogun as a puppet seems to be somewhat different in a way that she has her own cognizant thinking, albeit programmed by Ei. It's like Ei gave her a set of commands and she gets to decide how she'll act based on her own judgment, which is why the Shogun accepted the clause for eternity through the Vision Hunt decree. On the other hand, she can't entirely function without Ei's prerogative. Additionally, it's possible that even the puppet will go against her master. As stated in Ei's character story 5, if Ei herself becomes the enemy to eternity, she will be the new target of the Raiden Shogun. The automaton's voice flowed into her ears like a sigh. The eternity you resolve to establish in your heart has been shaken by the countless wishes of the people. Thus, you have become my enemy. Back when she was creating the puppet, Ei had considered all the hidden risks involved. She believed that anything was possible, including the worst-case scenario, in which she, too, would someday become a threat to eternity. You believe that you are most firmly convicted now than you were yesterday, and that is why you are presently correct. Is that so? Do you presently have some new ideas? Or have you, too, fallen victim to inexorable eroded? But she had to press on. She had to reach eternity. This she would not permit to be stayed by any outside force. The puppet's words were something that she had asked herself long ago. Their faces were the same, but they spoke of different ideals. The battle with herself, with her past, would come someday. But it was not this day. Ei knew well that she was not yet ready.
Oh, wow! A ninja? So was that one of those legendary ninja transformation techniques?
During the Archon Quest, we are introduced to the Shumatsuban who help the traveler and Yae Miko look for clues about the Fatui's involvement with the Tenryou Commission to convince the Raiden Shogun and Kutosara. In lore, the Shumatsuban is a secret core unit under Kamisato Ayato and are basically ninjas. Their duties are of espionage and of spying, and the identities of their members are highly classified. They literally live in a ninja village. They also have ninja dogs. Tarumaru, for example, is an old friend of a Shumatsuban member who loyally served the Kamisato clan. On a side note, the Shumatsuban were recently involved in a world quest against the Fatui called a very special fortune slip. The Fatui have been trying to gather intel from Shumatsuban members by planting a fake shrine maiden in the Narukami. The Shumatsuban specialize in disguise, stealth, and mobility, gather information from targets, similar to how Sayu performed in the Archon Quest. After receiving the intel about the Tenryou Commission and convincing Kujosara of the crimes her family committed throughout the Sakoku Decree, the traveler confronts the Raiden Shogun head-on, only to be met with La Senora, the 8th Fatui Harbinger.
A lesson on Harbinger power and elegance? As you wish.
The tragedy of the Crimson Witch begins with Rosalind Krutschka Lohelfalte, a maiden from Mondstadt who fell in love with a knight named Rostam. Unfortunately, the monsters of the abyss began scouring the land as the fallout from Khaenri'ah began seeping through Tevat. While Rosalind was studying in the Sumeru Academia, Rostam was killed in the Cataclysm. To both avenge her lover and rid the world of the corruption of the abyss, Rosalind swore to purge the world in hellfire to cleanse it of its demons and monsters. The Crimson Witch of Flame walked upon the earth, burning monsters into cinders. Rumor told of how she sacrificed her mortal body to become the embodiment of liquid fire herself. And through the centuries, her blood became molten iron. Years passed, and the Crimson Witch of Flames was born. She would slowly fight the monsters of the abyss until she slowly became scorched and burnt, her face almost unrecognizable as she became blind to her own devastation. However, in a time unknown, she was faced with a man who called himself the Jester. The Jester told her that he and her shared the same goal, and that it was to cleanse this world of short-sighted gods and the corruption of the abyss. The Crimson Witch, believing that the Tsaritsa's stainless ideals was the true salvation of the world, accepted the Jester's invitation. But even she believed that while she dressed in pure white, she could never cleanse the ashes of the dead. Thus, La Senora was born. The cryo delusion she bears was made to seal off the ancient power she garnered, as well as hide the monster she had become.
You and I have both witnessed the great loss that progress can bring. Eternity. Eternity is the only way.
The history of Ei was one that was extensively covered in the lore, yet in the Archon Quest, we only know of her sister's death. Ei's philosophy of putting everything in constant stasis came from centuries of grief and loss, not only for her sister, but also of her friends. In her character trailer, we are met with 3 important figures that Ei considered as close companions. Sasayuri was a Tengu general that was killed during the war against Orobaxi. Horachio was an Oni who fought alongside Ei against the monsters of corruption, until one day, she too was consumed by a tiger-like beast with a snake as a tail. She found herself in another mysterious world, hearing and seeing the suffering of people as she fell into the belly of the beast. When she emerged, she lost herself, and we see her final fight with Ei in the character trailer. The Kitsune Saigu was the last entity and presumably disappeared before the cataclysm. The Kitsune Saigu is the ancestor of Kazari and Yae Miko, and she had warned Ei about what might happen when Conria fell. She left without a trace, and no one knew where she would go. It was hinted that her memory would erode as a form of corruption. And last but not the least, we see the visage of Baal. We are told of Beelzebub's sister and her death during the cataclysm. The philosophy of eternity that Ei wishes to preserve comes from a deeply rooted fear of loss. Her idea that change will bring death and suffering reflects well with her line to the traveler about ambitions.
Consider this. No one will lose their life on account of having their vision taken away. Rather, those who have lost their lives are the ones who insisted on pursuing their own aspirations, are they not?
The final scene of the story opens the continuation of the Inazuma plot, where I assume we'll be ending off in Yae Miko's story quest, the tale of the wandering puppet. Yae Miko reveals to us the story of Scaramouche, or Kunikuzushi, the prototype puppet of Ei.
The original plan was for Ei to simply discard it, but perhaps Ei thought this to be too cruel, because in the end she chose only to seal the power within it.
Years after Baal's death, Ei began tampering with her divine form. She would soon discover a mysterious art that allowed her to make a vessel. The prototype vessel she created was Kunikuzushi, a transcendent being destined to live a hollow life. His purpose was to store the Gnosis after Baal's death. However, Ei observed that the puppet was too fragile, for it shed tears in its sleep. She concluded that the doll was too weak to be used as a vessel, but decided against killing him. Instead, she brought him to the Shakai Pavilion and left behind a gold ornament feather by his side. She would leave him to slumber for years unknown. For a mysterious reason, the doll would rouse himself from sleep and soon begin wandering the lands of Tatarasuna. Near the shores, he would be discovered by workers from the Mikage furnace. There he would befriend people by the names of Katsuragi and Nozumo. However, he would soon leave Tatarasuna and begin wandering elsewhere. He would meet many different people in his journey, and as he pressed on, he would meet many different kinds of hearts. Good hearts, gentle hearts, noble hearts, strong hearts. The puppet with no purpose longed to have that kind of heart as well. As his wanderings came to an end, he grew defiant of his fate. He believed that no man or god can judge him, and that he was a human that transcended everything else. As his wanderings came to an end, he would adopt a new name, Kunikuzushi, or the Destroyer of Nations. This was a name adopted from Inazuma Theater that he saw while going through his journeys. He always appreciated the three-act structure that these plays took, wondering if his life will also reflect such. During his travels, the puppet would soon be found by the Fatui as he wandered in Inazuma, a man with a coat. The man would lead him back to Snezhnaya, where they would soon bring him to the Tsaritsa. With the Fatui's help, his powers became unsealed and amplified. The Fatui conducted numerous experiments on the doll to unlock the Electro Archon's power, and with the Tsaritsa's delusion, the doll became Scaramouche. The doll was haughty, prideful, arrogant, and cruel. He would relish in the pained expressions of his comrades and abandon things that he no longer found interesting. The Balladeer became one of the most notorious harbingers in the Fatui, known for his harsh tongue and his short temper and stature. But in his lore, it seems that he has acquired the heart that he was searching for. Whether it was the delusion or the gnosis Yae Miko gave to him is currently unknown. Whatever the heart is, though, it caused him nothing but despair. Neither player nor Fatui know where this man currently is. But yes, that's all the important lore contexts for the Archon Quest. A lot of the Archon Quest relied on background information to explain the significance of each scene, and there are even some parts I didn't cover. Nevertheless, I'm personally hoping for another Archon Quest, or at least continue where we last left off with the Gnosis catastrophe, since we do need to retrieve it to get to the Celestia endgame. Anyway, my name is Aster, and thank you for chilling with me.